This project was to nominate the Washington Square Commercial Corridor to the National Register of Historic Places. The National Register is the federal government's official list of places deemed worthy of preservation. So it spans the entire country. There's about 100,000 places in the National Register. In Michigan, there's about 2,000 sites, and Washington Square is one of the newest. And so for Washington Square, it was nominated in the areas of commerce, for the business development that took place there, and also for community planning and development.
The project really started back during the master plan process. The master plan process included some thinking by the city about historic preservation citywide, and then also a community and neighborhood sub-area plan for Washington Square. It was recognized that surveying the existing buildings of Washington Square might be an appropriate future step for that area, and that survey work would typically be used to establish a historic district. There were 5 students, a cohort of 5 students, and we were looking for a project. And so given that there was some interest on the ground, and given the size of Washington Square, and kind of with collaboration with the city and with the property owners, we identified the square as a good candidate project for us.
When this opportunity came up, it aligned with past discussions, both what had been expressed during the master plan refresh process, included in their neighborhood sub-area plans, and then also continually discussed at ongoing meetings. So when I was approached by Nick Grolinsky and the students from Notre Dame, it seemed like an excellent opportunity for the students, the city, and the businesses to all be involved. This area was very new, up and coming. It was open. It had been platted, but not a lot had been built there. And so when we start to have businesses spring up and people and houses, we start to develop these neighborhoods. And so it all kind of comes together around the same time. By the 1920s, the city limits have been expanded, the city is rapidly growing, they need more space, more houses, more people, and then Washington Square is kind of perfectly placed.
Housing is just a block away or less, and so that relationship and kind of symbiosis between the 400 plus housing units that are within a 5-minute walk of Washington Square is important for understanding how that business model might work and what kind of businesses might occupy the square. At some point, the decision was made to orient the buildings to face what was First Avenue and then eventually named Washington Avenue. If the buildings had faced either 18th Street or 19th Street, that would have been a much longer side of the block to fill from end to end with commercial fabric. And again, we don't really know if that was at the front of their minds, but what happened was the square filled in pretty completely. Something about the right sizing of how much commercial do we want to put in here, and using the short end of the block between 2 streets, that worked out for Washington Square in a way that's unique.
When an individual building or a district is listed on the National Register, that is an honorary designation. It says this place, this space is worthy of preservation, and also it qualifies them for tax credits and other benefits that can be used to offset the cost of eligible improvements to these resources.
Having some of those preservation tax credits available to us to make things look nice and keep them looking nice and that sort of thing. Plus the registry draws in attention, so more foot traffic for not just my business but all of the businesses in the square, and then the rest of the city as well.
It can take months or it can take years. There's several different kind of review phases that go into this. This was a great opportunity because, again, we used the students who already knew how to do research. It was just applying the research skills to the sources that were here in Holland. This project, I want to say, took about 1.5 years, start to finish, from when the idea for the project was first proposed to when it was actually listed.
We here at the city wouldn't have been able to do this, especially on this type of timeline, if it wasn't for the involvement of Notre Dame and their graduate students in the Historic Preservation Program. When we were able to tell City Council that this project was happening, there was a lot of excitement because, again, we all know that there's something there at Washington Square, and that this project was able to really bring that to light in a way city resources on our own wouldn't have been able to do.
Everybody was very supportive of the project. It was really great to see the community coming together, from the archives of the museum being gone through to the students that came out and took a lot of photos and things like that in the square. I got to hear the history of all of the buildings coming into the square, and then when the Historic District Commission had their open meeting, I also attended that, and just a really fun time to get to hear of the project start to finish, and then also hear of the acceptance into the registration.
I love that Washington Square sort of transports you to a walkable neighborhood that looks very similar to the way it did around the 1920s, 1930s, but the businesses have evolved and changed. So today, it's there to serve the neighborhood, but it also has businesses that are reaching beyond our immediate community.
I think neighborhoods that have places like Washington Square are very important. It's a living blueprint, and so it means it's alive and animated and activated and changing and dynamic, and it's very important for us to have those places that we can visit for benchmarking and modeling purposes.